Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Boosted Rolls, a War Machine and Hordes podcast focused on the EU meta, tournaments, and stuff like that. I'm Simon, and I play Primal Terrors.
I'm Tomasz, and I play Circle.
And today we have a very special guest.
I'm Pat, and right now I'm playing Crucible Guard and Grimkin, and a few other things.
Disappointment. I was hoping it was going to be at least slightly mocking of other people. All right, so today we are mainly going to discuss ClogCon, which is one of the sort of American-style conventions that are creeping their way into Europe at the moment, and I'm personally very happy that they are, because one of the few good things to come out of the USA. And this one took place in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, is that right?
Yep.
Was it another sort of airport hotel type thing, or...?
It was in an airport hotel for Schiphol Airport, which is the big airport that serves Amsterdam. I have to say, just as an aside, those airport hotel venues are brilliant because it makes it so easy to travel internationally to events. You don't have to worry about high costs or getting lost or that kind of thing. Once you arrive, it's real nice. Yeah,
I'm a massive fan of that. Like, I'm heading to Denmark next week, and I've got to do, like, you know, traveling to Copenhagen and then getting a lift with some guy, driving a few hours, and then trying to find somewhere to sleep. And if you can just fly, hotel, play, sleep, it's real nice.
Yeah, and the hotel was like the best hotel I ever been for a War Machine tournament.
Yeah, the hotel is absurd.
You mean like the conference room or the rooms like afterwards?
Yeah, the conference room had muted walls. The rooms were like high standards, so.
And how was the tournament organisation? Was it up to sort of international standards, or any problems?
Problems?
No, it was fantastic. So one of the things that I love about US-style conventions is you get lots and lots of events running simultaneously, lots of different things you can do every day. It's really nice to be able to play 3, 4, or 5 rounds of War Machine, depending on what you fancy. Every day, to be able to drop out of things if you're tired or you want to go eat or you just want to have an early night or maybe you want to have a late night with drinks instead of War Machine. It's really nice to have that freedom. And you get to try a lot of stuff. You know, I was able to bring Crucible Guard and Grimkin and play them both on the weekend, which was really delightful.
That's something I've never... Well, I mean, me and Tomasz both play only one faction, so that's something I've never done, but the possibility to do it sounds great, as you say.
Yeah, especially if your factions are the limited released. Most things are plastic.
Yeah, and you only have like 4 models that are available to play with, so...
I can't wait to chat about that later on, because... you've got some stones to bring Crucible Guard without the full release. Like that's ballsy. Anyway, all right. So let's quickly describe what were the pairings that each of you took. So I'm guessing, and this is for the Masters, I mean. So for the Masters tournament, start with Tomasz maybe. What was the pairing that you took?
So it will be easier for me because I've played in Masters, in Steamroller and Invitational. And in all those tournaments, I took Wormwood Bones and Kruger 2 Bones. And
is the Kruger 2 Bones the same one that I know well, or have you made some changes?
Those are the same list I took to check Masters. So Wormwood has 3 heavies and 3 wildwords and some support. And Kruger 2 is tweaked so I can cover Grimkin matchups because I cannot play Wormwood there, and Kruger without additional heavy has problems. So...
And I'm guessing you dropped the Fulcrum to allow for that.
Yeah, I've dropped Fulcrum for a Guardian, and I've put Ailish to be able to scrape Enfeeble off.
Oh, okay. Okay, makes sense. And Pat, what did you take to... Did you also play in 3 events? Or
I did. I played in the exact same events. I played in Masters, I played in the same Steamroller as Tomasz, and then I played in the Invitational.
Okay, so what did you take to those 3?
So for Masters, I took Grimkin, and I took Dreamer Old Witch, my regular pair that I'm playing right now, no innovations. Same pair that I took to WTC, and I've been taking to various events. For the Steamroller and for the Invitational, I played Crucible Guard. And my list varied, mainly because in the Steamroller, I was limited only to the models I had with me, whereas in the Masters, in the Invitational, day 3, Johan was kind enough to lend me his models so that I could cobble together 2 decent lists for the Invitational.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, so in both events, I played Silvestro and Locke because they're the only 2 casters that anyone had. I think Lucas might also be tournament legal right now, but no one had him. and he wasn't available in the store. And both times I'm playing Silvestro in Magnum Opus, which is the infantry theme. He's running with steel heads and rocket men and a solid battle group, and a bunch of trancers. And then Locke, because she's a Warjack caster, is playing in Prima Materia. First time she had a terrible Prima Materia list that I won't bother talking about. But for the Invitational, she was running extremely heavy battle group with 3 Tauros, a pair of lights, and a Vulcan, plus some support.
Okay. So, and how about the sort of second half of the Masters? Not the finals, but the rounds before the finals. Can you maybe come up with one sort of more of the more interesting games from that period? Maybe we'll start with Pat. What did you play?
So in round 5, which was the final game of day 1, which was recorded on stream, I played against Marcin Majsek, who was running Protectorate of Menoth, and he had Resnick 2, so that's Resnick on a chariot, with a bunch of Crusaders, an Inditer, double Idrians, and double Max Deliverers, which was a pretty awesome list. So that's 20 guys with rockets, which is not something I think I've ever played against. It was pretty novel and really cool. He chose to drop that list against me as opposed to his double Judicator list, which was his primary list. But he was confident that Resnick was pretty strong into Grimkin. I thought this was really interesting, and it's why I wanted to mention it, because going into the matchup, both of us thought we were massively advantaged.
Okay.
And he thought this was his anti-Grimkin list, and I've played against Resnick quite a few times, and it's always been pretty good for Grimkin. So that was interesting. I think what it comes down to is he had almost 40 infantry with guns, and my Dreamer Dark Menagerie list basically just ignores them. Right? They do some minor damage. They get in the way. They can maybe threaten to do some significant things if I'm not careful, but they're not really threatening heavies in a meaningful way. And that's because the rockets are doing single CRAs, which get absorbed by Krabbit Shield Gods. And the Idrians just aren't doing significant damage to heavies, right? They're light infantry. They'll do a little bit, but they won't do huge amounts, especially when one unit is enfeebled.
And so what was his theory?
So the thing that I find is the second part that makes it bad is, as well as all the infantry not being that great in the matchup, the heavies are really outclassed. So he's running 3 Crusaders and Inditer, which all have a lower threat range than my heavies and aren't as tough and don't hit as hard. And I've got 5 heavies and he's only got 4. So because I can mostly ignore the infantry, I can really get ahead on the heavy game. And going through the game, my game plan was to try and set up a situation to force him to commit heavies first so that I can then really get ahead, right? Because with one more heavy, if I commit first, we'd probably end up trading evenly. He kills 1 or 2, I kill 1 and 2, back and forth. But by sending in the Gorehounds to tie up all the infantry, like his infantry just can't kill Gorehounds. You know? Like, he can't CRA into melee. His enfeebled Idrians can never hit defense 14 in melee. Right. So he has to then commit heavies because the Gorehounds... What were his
prey targets?
That's a great question. I think they were Cage Ragers.
Okay.
So he had the units of Idrians prayed the Cage Ragers opposite them. And they did do decent damage with CRAs into those Cage Ragers into the early game. But between Krabbits and Sacrifice, it wasn't really significant enough. And you could argue maybe he should pray the Gorehounds. The only challenge there is with 3 Gorehounds and going first, I can just crisscross them, right? And run them away from the unit. Yeah, and run away from the unit that has prey. So I see why he prayed the models that aren't really getting away.
Yep.
I think it's a situation where whatever you pray, it's not ideal. Yeah, but by having the Gorehounds engage and tie up a bunch of infantry, he was forced to then have Crusaders free them up, at which point my heavies can go into the Crusaders, and I start trading up really positively. All the while just shrugging off as much range damage as possible with my various defenses.
And did any of that range damage make it through? Was there any point at which you went, oh God, didn't see that coming? Or
I mean, I definitely took a lot of damage from range, but the Deliverers, I think, are power 10 base.
Right.
So they go up to a power 20 CRA, which is really good. It needs 7s to kill a Krabbit. so it doesn't actually reliably one-shot them. And I think what happened is one Crabbit got one shot, one didn't. So I was able to absorb basically 3 CRAs from Deliverers just with Crabbits. And then because of Sacrifice, I was able to mitigate much more damage on top of that. So he probably did, over the course of the first couple of opening turns, like turn 2 and turn 3, he probably did about 40 or 50 damage at range. But none of it really killed models, except for maybe one Crabbit.
Because, do you remember your other Arcana?
It was Labyrinth. And Labyrinth is great for just ensuring my heavies outthreat his. Because he's a Boundless Charge caster. Labyrinth means his base speed 8 heavies are effectively speed 8 even with Boundless Charge. Whereas my Skinner modes are 10. I have Mirage as well. So it means I can outthreat him in multiple places.
Right. Okay.
I found Labyrinth to be really, really good against Menoth for that reason. They're not a fast faction, and being able to make them go to a cruel means it's very easy to hit them with multiple heavies before they can engage you.
Even against Judicator, like that, have you? So I'm going a little off track here, but does that hold true into High Reclaimer Judicator?
Not really, no, because Labyrinth is much more for stopping multiple slow heavies, whereas the Judicator is a bit faster. You know, it's speed 5 reach, as opposed to Crusader, which is speed 4 1 inch. And of course, it's got great guns. So it's not really applicable in the same way. But when you're dealing with things like this Resnick list, Amon, any caster that's running lots of heavies, Labyrinth is great. Right.
Okay, makes sense. All right, cool. And how did that game sort of come to a close? What was you said you won on Scenario, is that right?
Yeah, so you can catch it on stream if anyone is really interested. But I was able to make a play that I was pretty happy with, where even though I was going first, I put out enough threat early that on my second turn, I could tow, if you imagine it's the pit 2, right? So as the active player, as you look at it, your opponent's zone is on the left with their objective, and your own zone is on the right with your objective. So I was able to get 2 heavies, a Skinner Moan and a Cage Rager, on a hill in his zone in Artifice for cover with a shield guard. And this is what I mean about like shrugging off all his guns, right? If he's not making 10-man CRAs, his shots are missing. And if he is, they're being sucked up by the Crabbit. So he was in a position where, because I outthreat him, I'm then sitting in his zone. Anything that comes into the zone is going to die, and his heavies are basically forced out. So even though he was going second, he wasn't able to score any points. And then on my third turn as the first player, I was able to trivially kill his objective, score 2, and basically continue the stalemate and force him to have to make a move first and come into my threat ranges. At which point we started. Brutal. Yeah, at which point, I was able to kill heavies quite efficiently and use the Gorehounds to tie up infantry, force Crusaders to spend attacks on Gorehounds instead of heavies and really get ahead that way.
Oh, that's not what you want when you're playing against Grimkin. You want to try and get in a situation where you take out a heavy for free, because otherwise it's really hard. So if you lose the peace trade early on, that's nasty.
Yep.
Ugh. And do you think he let you do that, or do you think it was just like that was going to happen if you saw it and you were able to pull it off?
So one thing I'll say is this is a 5th game of a long day, right? It was played at something like 10, 11 at night.
Okay.
And we were both incredibly tired. And if you watch the game, I don't think we made any really silly mistakes, but we were really slow, like all the way through. Both of us were just really slow at doing everything. There was a lot of staring into space before making obvious moves. And we definitely, like Marcin was saying a lot, that he felt like his play was impacted by the fatigue, which is a real thing that definitely happens. So could he have avoided it? Maybe. I mean, he can answer that question better than I can. But yeah, he definitely, after the game, he was saying he didn't feel like he played his best.
Okay. Yeah, if it had been 10 a.m., it might have been a slightly different game. But, big cons, lots of tournaments. As you say, one of the downsides of having lots of tournaments to play is you've got to sort of fit them into the days, right?
Yep.
Okay, so that brings us on to the Masters Finals, which, as luck would have it, was the pair review. So, what was the scenario?
So our scenario was spread the net.
Ah, marvelous. So that's what you love to see when you're Grimkin against Kruger, right? I'm assuming it was Dreamer into Kruger?
Yep. We skipped the list selection.
Right, we didn't worry about that, yeah.
I mean, I think you could maybe make a case for Ulrich in some circumstances, but really why? And as soon as you're playing Spread the Net, you kind of need the Phantasms to keep you in the game.
Right. Okay. So, Kruger versus Dreamer on Spread the Net. Fine. And when was this one played? Were you fresh for this, or was this late night?
I have no excuse for this one. I was fresh as a daisy. It was first thing on the Saturday morning, day 2 of the con.
Okay. And did you know, you must have known, you knew from the previous evening who everyone was playing, right? Okay. So what were your, as the Grimkin going into, did you know that it was going to be Spread the Net, by the way?
Yes, because it was a 6-round event and we played the other 5 scenarios.
Okay.
I will say that the 5th round was a bit of a tense moment for me because I was battling Marcin and it was looking like I was winning. We finished our game first and people were coming over to me saying, oh, Tomasz is getting smashed. He's out of time. It looks like he's going to lose. And because you were the pair down, Tomasz, if you'd lost, then I'd have just won the event. So that was a game I was really hoping you would lose because it's the difference between winning at the end of round 5 or then playing a 6th round knowing that it's going to be Spread the Net against Kruger 2.
Yeah, I saw that it was recorded when you said that you hope that I lose.
Yeah, that's a disappointing situation to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, I was really lucky that game because I was playing Julian and he was smashing me. Like there was a Slayer that one around that Megalith with initial attacks almost like rolling all the 6s, but Julian didn't get the beep sound on his clock, so he clocked himself.
I hate it when that happens.
Yep.
God, I hate the silent clock thing. All right, so as the Grimkin player, knowing what you knew during the night, apart from, oh God, I'm tired, what were you thinking?
So, I mean, the main things are you tend to want to go second so you can score some points. Terrain is really important because you want terrain that can help you fight against the pushes and stop your heavies from being trivialized, either being pushed away by the feet or being pushed forwards with gallows. You basically need to not have the Kruger player pull your brick apart too easily and kill heavies without retaliation. And you want to be basically staying live in scenario and then trying to grind down Kruger's heavies, because that's probably the one thing you've got going for you in the matchup. You have more heavies, they hit harder, they're tougher. So if you can play a game where you're alive long enough to leverage that advantage, then it's okay. But obviously Spread the Net makes that tougher. And then the terrain we had was pretty disastrous for me.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it was awful. It had a building in the center of the table, which is kind of nice for stopping pushes, but the problem is Tomasz's army is much. Yeah, partly the problem is the death knell, right? It's a big problem because it means I can't have the death knell protect my whole army while also having my models relevant on all the Spread the Net scenario elements.
Yep.
And partly it means that I have to split my heavies on either side of the building, at which point Tomasz can concentrate all his heavies on one side because he's way more mobile, beat up my heavies and suffer no retaliation.
Right, Tomasz, you're now going in, you're looking at Kruger 2 into Dreamer. It's the night before. What are you thinking?
I started drinking.
Excellent, good start. That's a good thing.
The thing is, I have a lot of experience with Kruger and a lot of experience with Bradigus, but playing those exclusively for almost a year, I was always dropping Bradigus into Grimkins. I felt like I'm going to slaughter, like that I'm just going there to lose this game. But then I approached the table and the terrain was like crazy good. When I saw it, I was like, is it for real?
Not only did it have that building in the middle, but it had 2 forests covering the other 2 halves of, the 2 rectangular zones, right?
No, you're saying the terrain after Judge set up it. So the thing is, I approached the table and I've asked people around, is it a joke? Did they set up this table for me? Because it looks so good. Like it made my chances, my psychological chances, like rise by 50%. And then Patrick asked to reset up the table. right? Because you played it twice already at the same setup. And then Judge approached the table and made it even better for me.
Yep.
Jesus Christ. Okay. And so just for people who maybe aren't familiar with Kruger and Dreamer and how that works and sort of what you want to see, what you don't want to see, what do you define as, terrain that maybe gives you a bit of a stiffy? Like what does that look like as Kruger?
Just a lot of line of sight blocking terrain. Like if I see a building, I can abuse the building, like play around it. Like Patrick said, split his army, find a safe spot for Kruger to play him aggressively. And forests are really good because I can see opponent stuff like 3 inches deep into the forest and then TK myself back. So there's no retaliation because he cannot see me. And, playing against Grimkins, it's just the more difficult terrain, the better for you, because I produce difficult terrain with all the forests and undergrowth on Kruger and on Megalith. So if there's any other rough terrain that can help me, it's even better.
Yeah, and of course I've got 3 Cage Rages which have no way of getting Pathfinder and a speed 4.
Right, yeah. As Grimkin, do you just want to see a parking lot?
So it's funny because in most matchups you actually want really dense terrain because you do the same thing, right? You position your heavies to minimize charge angles and minimize how many models can get on them. But in this particular matchup, you just want it to be as open as possible. I mean, I suppose in theory what you would like is for there to be walls everywhere so that you can block pushes, but no other terrain. But that's never going to happen, right? So.
Okay. But if there were walls, your Cage Rages wouldn't be able to charge very often.
No, but I mean, the Cage Rages are condemned, I think, to just having to run base to heavies and then survive. And that's the only way they're ever making it into combat.
I see. All right.
Maybe, because like we calculated that I can push you away, I can TK you away, then with the weight of stone, you cannot, even if you run base to base, you cannot retaliate from it if I have my feet.
Yeah, if I engage you before your feet, then I can put all my models base to base with you, and then you can beat them all up, TK them away, push with your feet, and none of the Cage Rages can get back into melee.
That's just sad.
Really bad.
Oh, no. Right, okay. So is that what happened? So did the game just turn into you running into Kruger's face, hoping to live, and then maybe living or not? Or did you try and play it a different way?
No, so I tried a different way, and it didn't work. Basically, that's that in a nutshell. You can see, I think the key decision point from my point of view is I think it's on my second or third turn. It's like, the question is, do I engage? Right? And my options are either, I think I'm going second, and my option is score 2, hang back, and try and play a long game. Or rush everything forwards into the teeth of Kruger and try and force the engagement and hope that I can come out ahead on attrition. Now, because of the way the terrain was set up, I elected to go for a long game because basically I couldn't have my death knell cover my army because of the building in the middle of the board. And I was going second, so I was scoring first. And with those two things combined, I was like, maybe I can pull this off. Did not work. Did not really come close to working, honestly. It was a bad plan. I don't think that running forward would have been a better plan. But yeah, in hindsight, I would have tried it because it couldn't really have been any worse.
So what are we saying? That this matchup is heavily Kruger favoured or just only on Spread the Net?
I think it's only on Spread the Net because on other scenarios, I can use my support models to actually do relevant things that force engagement and tie up heavies and like punish really cagey play. But what I ended up having to do is commit them to the flanks where they just get taken to pieces by Sentry Stones when they don't have the aura. Yeah, those mannequins just destroy Gremlins and Gorehounds when I don't have an armor buff. And I made some small misplays at the start as well, which I was really kicking myself for, which I unnecessarily put a Gorehound in aiming range. And then, of course, he got punished by being hit and then by being hit by a Sentry Stone, and then the boosted damage came up as like a 17 or something. And he just got, so I basically gave away a Gorehound for free, which kind of guaranteed that I lost the flanks on Spread the Net, which is never going to be good, while also not really being able to engage in the center due to the terrain.
Right. And so, given that fact, how did you sort of punish that, Tomasz? What was your plan and how did you execute it?
So as a first player, my first turn is pretty easy. I just run my stuff forward as quickly as possible. And then my second turn was on flanks. I wanted to get rid of Patrick's skirmishing stuff as quickly as possible, because the quicker I get rid of it, the quicker I score points, and I want the game to end quickly. I don't want to make the game long against the Dreamer. And in the middle, I wanted to get rid of Arcane Vortex, so I was just throwing spells with my World Wardens with no plan. I started with World Wardens because after you declare Geomancy, he needs to Arcane Vortex it, so you have enough Fury to put Forests. And Forest protects you from Abyssal Gate, and World Wardens are the easiest target for Abyssal Gate because they are arm 18, they are easy to kill, and Forest protects them from being placed, so it's important. If you want to Abyssal Gate Guardian, the Guardian was a bit further back, so it was more difficult, especially with armor 20. And Megalith, if you Abyssal Gate him, you Abyssal Gate his Undergrowth with him, so 5 inches of rough terrain around him. So that was my plan, and I succeeded in it. I believe I got rid of 2 or 3 corpses from Cage Ragers, which I was really happy about. And yeah.
A quick question. Were you tempted to just let the Arcane Vortexes go, Pat? Just let them fly? Let the Gallows go?
So you have to... It's tricky. So I think if you watch the game, what you'll see is on his second term, where he's doing all of this, I'm letting some resolve and I'm cancelling some. And the problem is I can't afford not to cancel any. Because as soon as I do that, one of my heavy... basically, if I don't cancel the first, then the heavy that gets dragged away only has its own vortex to protect itself further.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
At which point, Kruger plus the 3 heavies have 5 gallows between them.
And
some number
die.
of TKs. Yeah, so it will get pulled a mile and it will die. It will be outside of the aura and it will be beaten up by 1 or 2 heavies, depending on order of activations and how much he has to spend. But basically, if he had a heavy go first and use its gallows, if I had not cancelled that, Kruger comes up, uses 2 more gallows, only 1 of which I can cancel. I'm then in threat range of 2 heavies and there's no retaliation. So I just give away a heavy for free.
Yeah.
So I have to cancel at least 1. And I think I only cancelled 1. My memory is a bit hazy on the subject, but I think that was also partly because the angles that Tomasz was using meant that the other ones weren't really pulling me in a very bad direction. They were pulling me kind of towards the central building, but I'd be quite protected and I'd have retaliation if you engage me. So I think I only had to cancel 1, which was not ideal, but it wasn't the end of the world.
I believe you spent 2 corpses, but I may be wrong.
I think I had to spend a corpse on the other flank as well.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm not sure.
So the thing is, like I said, I wasn't looking at angles. I was just dragging you. And what happened in the first game, my opponent let my first gallows in, and I rolled a 6 on the gallows, so it was heavy for free. So here I wasn't paying attention, so you let my gallows in, and I rolled 1. Then I gallowsed you another time. I rolled 1, so I was like, okay, good deal. I just made this Cage Rager faster, so I had to. I had to
speed him up a bit.
Yeah, I had to activate Megalith, I believe, and TK him back because at this point he was probably in range. I don't know. I had Undergrowth, so maybe not, but still, like I wasn't happy dragging him forward, but not in range of any heavy that I cannot retaliate. That I cannot prevent retaliation. So.
The only weakness of a Grimkin heavy, and you fixed it for him. That's a very, that's a very
generous
fine
of
thing
you
to do. Yeah. And just a quick question: which Arcana did you have?
I had Labyrinth and Sacrifice. Yeah, okay. Labyrinth and Sacrifice.
Yeah, standard stuff. And do you ever get much use out of All Fall Down in that particular matchup?
I don't think you ever get much use out of All Fall Down.
Right.
It's not very good. I'll be honest. The problem is the trigger condition is when my models are killed, and I don't have very many models, and they're really hard to kill. And the effect is your model falls down after it activates. But your models are either they've made ranged attacks, in which case they're out of my threat range, and I can't capitalize on that, or they've made melee attacks, in which case they're in my threat range and they're dead regardless of the fact they've been knocked down or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't really do anything, is my experience. It has a kind of a niche use to stop something like admonition, or to turn a 80% caster kill into a 90% when they kill something in melee and get knocked down at the foot of a Skin and Moans. But
right.
I think it's okay.
It's a pretty garbage Arcana.
I think it's okay into Una too.
I mean, maybe. The problem is, how many Griffins are you knocking down? Because they each have had to kill something to fall over. You know? Like, at the worst case is they've traded.
Yeah, but those that are knocked down are not going to use dodge, so that's maybe value there.
I lost a game with Fianna because she was my only remaining magic weapon, and this gremlin swarm refused to die. And I was just like, right, fuck it, Fianna's going to do it herself. You know, if no one else will do it, she'll do it. Runs in 4-inch, whack, and he's like, all fall down. It's like,
yeah, I think it might work against everything high def and with dodge.
Well, it's still, those models still have had to kill your models, right? Which means it's not that reliable.
No. I think it requires a mistake, which that most definitely was.
It's not like you're playing 40 chaff infantry.
Yeah. If it was like that, it would maybe be a bit stronger. All right. So, Tomasz, just quickly to sort of explain to me, how did you round out the game? How did it finish up?
So my third round was just setting up for the fifth turn so I can push everything away of the zones and score as much as possible to put a scenario pressure. Mm-hmm. And I was able to kill stuff that was in zones, like the skirmish and stuff, and push everything away with combination of the fit and decays. And then in my fourth turn, if you look at the game on YouTube, I stare at the table for quite a long time. I'm trying to figure out the whole activation chain and where is the weakest spot, because I have a Puppet Master and I need to give it somewhere. So I decided that I will give the Puppet Master to Megalith, because Megalith starts the turn and needs to TK the Death Knell away and kill Skin and Moans.
Okay.
And yeah, I'm happy I gave the Puppet Master because I failed the TK, so I was able to Puppet Master it and succeed. Then I'm able to kill stuff that is in the zone and TK the rest, and I score 4 points again.
And it all worked out, and you ended up winning. You said you scored 4, then you scored 4 again. So, how many did Pat score? What was the final score? 8-3?
I scored it was 8-3. I just want to call out, although I was doomed to a scenario loss at this point in the game, I was very proud of my third turn, where my whole army had been feated on and pushed back and was out of all the zones. But by the end of my activations, I was able to score or contest every zone. And it's a really good demonstration of the power of phantasms and why Dreamer is the caster you want to play in these kind of fast scenarios. Because I was able to get models to kind of just in threat range to kill a couple of key pieces in Tomasz's army, turn them into phantasms and contest everything relevant.
What were you killing them with
caster would have been able
with
to do.
Gorehound?
Yeah, one was like a single mannequin being killed by an abyssal gate, and one was, I think, my heavy was able to, my Skin and Moans in my own zone was able to reach a Wold something.
Wold Warden.
A Wold Warden.
Yep.
Kill him, thanks to Manifest Destiny, kill him to the box and turn him into a big fat phantasm, which was then able to run and contest a flag.
I love that the Wold something, like any circle players know what they all are. Everyone else just says, yeah, the Wold guy. Like one of those.
There's Stoneform, Shrimp, a Little Megalith, and Fatty.
Yes, Little Megalith. Little Megalith got turned into a big fat pinata.
Looking at the table, I was like, why Patrick is still playing this game? Because I was like, this is like auto lose now. And then I reminded myself that he's a player that remembers to put Phantasm on the table.
There are those Grimkins out there that don't. Yeah. Nice. All right. So, congratulations on winning the Masters.
Thank you.
I think that's quite. How many players were there in total? 32, 64?
Yeah, we played 6 rounds, so it'd be equivalent of 64.
Right, it's like I say, yeah, six rounds, so a big tournament. Cool, nice. Then you said that you played both a steamroller and an invitationals. We haven't got a ton of time, so why don't we take one game from each of you that wasn't the finals from either of those, and then we'll talk about the invitational finals. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So, who did we start with last time? I can't remember. Tomasz, let's start with you. So, Tomasz, tell us about a game from either the steamroller or the invitationals, which wasn't the finals.
So I'll pick the first round of invitationals. I was playing Emily Celia, and she's a French Legion player. She was playing Anamag, and I've picked Wormwood to... She wasn't expecting Wormwood. She said, all right, it's obvious you are going to play Kruger. And I'm like, no, it's Wormwood. And we are playing the Pit 2, so my least favorite scenario. And the thing, what happened there was, I feel like I'm massively in advantage in this matchup. I've played it quite a few times as preparation, and I found myself often using Cassius. I'm often too cagey with Cassius, trying to keep him alive, and because of it, I don't get much use of him. Like the entire game, he's just trying to find a safe spot, and he's never arcing any spells. So in this game, I decided to be brave, and I've put a Cassius in charge range of a single tentacle of a Hellmouth, and I was like, yeah, I can survive that. And then in the end of my turn, I put a shifting stone next to the Cassius that was behind the building, but the shifting stone wasn't. So Emily activated Blighbringer, shot the shifting stone. With blast damage, she managed to kill the stone and cripple Cassius for quite a bit. And then the tentacle with Fury Strength charged Cassius and finished me off. So, so after her first turn, I was with my caster in the middle of the table. We are playing the Pit 2. I have no shifting stone to port 3, and I have no Cassius. And if I want to move my second unit of shifting stones, they will be in the range of anything, of Lightbringer guns or anything, really. So I was like, all right, that's interesting, because from now on, my caster is going to be there, and I need to play like around it. I had a genius plan to change the geometry of the game, because how terrain worked, I had this massive building in the middle of the table. So I wanted to use the same thing I've used against you, Simon, in WTC game, that just dancing around the building, avoiding the fight, splitting
it's
my
difficult to dance around when you're a tree, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't do it. So now I needed to send my plan was like send 3 of my heavies in the right zone. So now I needed to send them in the left zone, 2 on the left zone and 1 in the right, just around my caster to protect him. And I was playing this like Grimkin brick that I want my opponent to come in, but I don't leave enough space for all his bases to punch my army and then retaliate. So I was doing that for like 4 rounds, being a bit down on attrition. And then I had a good turn when I swinged it all back with Waldwords that were able to shoot Warmongers, with upkeep on them. Then Guardian went in for Chosen. And with Rams, I was able to like one hit every single one, and with Ram advances I could get to 4 of them, I believe. So I was walking around punching stuff like I had Berserk Overtake. And Emily was surprised that Guardian is power strength 20. She felt like he's between 14, 15.
Like the good old days.
That's an unfortunate surprise when you're relying on Chosen staying alive. And had she just forgotten about the upkeep on the Warmongers, or did she decide that Purgation was okay? Like, it's not, by the way.
I think she decided to do it, but I don't know what was the reason. Like it made I had to put my Waldwords in awkward spaces, and because they were engaged, I needed to clear things that the Waldwords were engaged with first before I moved them. So that could be a smart move. I don't know. I didn't do as much work as I could, mainly because I had to clear all those things engaging Waldwords. But,
and was there a single round where the Blightbringer wasn't stranglehold?
No, Blightbringer was just a giant potato in the middle of the table, stranglehold every turn. Emily had a very good play that she managed to drag Megalith with Gallows in the range of Blightbringer, so Blightbringer could kill him. So yeah, but in the end, it was Blightbringer on few boxes with Stranglehold, Anamag, and Amok on one box, and Harrier on the table against like two of my heavies, few old words, a lot of support stuff. So Emily went for 0.018% assassination, and it didn't work out.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a fair attempt. I mean, if that's all you've got, it's better than zero.
It's
isn't
better
it?
than zero. Yeah.
Yeah, so why not? All right. And Pat, tell us about a game. Which one have you got for us? So from the Steamroller or the Invitational, not including the finals.
So what I'll do is I'll continue the theme of beating up on Anamag, because she was everywhere that
you
weekend.
Guys. Damn you both.
And I'm going to roll two games together because they played out in similar ways.
Jesus. Now everyone's
in the Steamroller, I played against Robin, Silvestro versus Anamag, and then in the Invitational, Robin from Sweden, and then the Invitational, I played against Stian from Norway, Silvestro versus Anamag. And what I discovered is Silvestro is pretty good against Anamag. Because obviously I'd not played the matchup before. I'm pretty new to Crucible Guard. We don't have a lot of Legion players locally in London. And it was nice to play it back-to-back, and kind of one game gives you a good indication, oh, maybe this is good. Playing it a second time against another player and having it play out in a similar way is more reassuring.
Yeah.
And I discovered, so I'm playing the infantry theme, right? And I discovered a few things that were really nice for me. First off, having Purification is just delightful. And removing Bond of Gristle and Bone from Chosen makes a massive difference to be able to shoot them from range, right? They no longer have Feign Death. That 2-point armor swing is a big deal. Some other things I discovered about the matchup. First up, my whole army is basically immune to the Blightbringer's gun, almost on accident. Like, every model of my army is either immune to fire or immune to blast damage, or is a Warjack that takes one less dice of damage from fire. So the poor Blightbringer was just waddling around without really anything to do, and it basically just became a glorified Creelstone, like a 32-point Creelstone. And then because the way the Anamag lists work is they're all about supporting the infantry, right? Her spell list supports the infantry, Blightbringer supports the infantry, nothing really supports the Blightbringer, and it was trivially easy for my range list that had a lot of range damage output, because I've got a feat that gives me effectively Signs and Portents. I've got rockets that give a -2 armor buff to the Blightbringer because it's -2 to living models. It was just trivially easy to kill the Blightbringer whenever I wanted. Right. And in one game, I think I killed it with just guns. I just shot it off the table on turn 3 with stormtroopers, rockets, and some heavies. And in the second game, I killed it with 5 charging steelheads. They were rolling straight dice, 4d6 dropped the lowest, and it was pretty average dice to kill it with 5 steelheads. If I rolled hot, I could kill it with 4. It was just nuts.
You're all making me sad. Like, so far, what of the words we've used to describe the Blightbringer been? I think it was a big potato, a waddling Creelstone. Like, this is like gargantuan.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So that made the matchup pretty bad for Primal Terrors. The fact that I can deal with Chosen fairly well, and that Blightbringer doesn't really do anything. And then I also discovered I can get my defense high enough that I can basically ignore Hellmouths because their tentacles never hit anything. And even things like charging Chosen and charging Warmongers were sometimes missing. And although they weren't that likely to miss, as soon as they did, like, their entire activation was foiled, right? Because because then they're stuck engaged by steelheads, or they fail their berserk chain, or the defense 18 Rocket Man dodges away, and then the Chosen has nothing else to fight. So their infantry on infantry action wasn't very effective either. And it just felt like my army had all the answers it needed to just take apart Animag and not really let her play her game.
What makes me most sad about this is that both of the other lists that I'm looking at for pairing Animag with all rely on quite a bit of fire damage as well.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, when anyone sort of asks me, and a few people do, they sort of say, oh, you play Primal Terrors a lot. What do you think about Crucible Guard? And I'm just like, oh yeah, great, yeah, more shooting. That's what we need. Legion don't have any problems with shooting. Oh wait. So yeah,
maybe you should play Australian style game because
Australian style Legion.
I mean War Machine, because Blightbringer is a support model, right?
Yeah,
and in Australia they don't use support models. At least this is what I get from talking to Chris Davis. Support is shit. Don't use it.
Right, we don't worry about support. No eye switches, no Blightbringer, just
no support.
Just more boxes, more arms.
Yeah.
Right. I'll have to give it a try. Why not? Nothing else is working. All right. And that. So I feel like I may have skipped over something. Have we finished describing the game that we were talking about, or have I gone blank?
No, we're all good. Let's soldier on.
We're caught up. Right, soldiering on to the finals of the Invitationals where you met again.
Yeah.
So congratulations to you both for soldiering through, especially with Crucible Guard. I still think that's amazing. And so how was this one? Was this another one where you didn't really bother actually doing a pairing, or did you actually do it this time?
Oh, we definitely did,
yeah.
And I think we caught each other by surprise because we'd met in the Steamroller, and in the Steamroller it had been Silvestro versus Wormwood.
Yep.
Which I had won by virtue of Tomasz not knowing what my models did, which is always a strong benefit of playing a new faction. And then in the finals of the Invitational, we dropped the other lists. So I dropped Locke and Tomasz dropped Kruger.
Okay.
And I think, Tomasz, you were more upset by this than I was, right?
Sorry?
You were more upset by this. You were really surprised. You looked at me in disgust and you just said, do you know that if I drop Wormwood, I just beat you? And I was like, oh, no, I don't know. This is the second time I've ever played this list. I got no idea what my good and bad matchups are.
Yeah, so I discovered that playing against Silvestro, Wormwood was a good matchup, but because I've played it for the first time, I didn't know what was going on. But anyway, with Wormwood, Hellmouth is your best tool, and setting up Hellmouth is difficult, and Hellmouth is expensive. You don't want to miss it, and everything. I'm just more comfortable with Kruger, and I figured that Lightning Storm and Windstorm is really good into Silvestro, and I wasn't expecting Locke because the reasons you've already mentioned. I thought Stranglehold is just going to, they are going to stand where they are and do nothing for the entire game, and I'm going to just outscore Pat. Yep, but Pat had secret plan going on for Wormwood, right?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a good plan. My plan was to hope you failed some Strangleholds.
I've gone
which
with
might
that
have
plan.
worked.
That plan's worked in the past.
So it's worth mentioning that I've got countercharge models and I've got a bit of a cloud wall with Locke. So that can make it slightly harder to get Strangleholds where you want. And because Wormwood is a big dumb tree, my plan of give any one Warjack that isn't Stranglehold, give that Pathfinder, have it run next to Wormwood, and then jackhammer a whole bunch of times is a fairly legitimate way to keep Wormwood a little bit honest in his placement.
Yeah.
And then with the feat, I can sometimes stop some Strangleholds because the feat gives me a stacking armor and defense buff.
Yeah,
and you can get to the point where you need
it?
things. Yeah, it gets to the point where you need boosted 10s, boosted 11s, maybe to damage things, which isn't super reliable. But none of these plans are great. They all have a lot of counterplay. But that was really all I was thinking is I can give it a shot and it might work.
Wait, the lock feet plan sounds pretty sweet to me because you walk everything up. I mean, I do mean walk because obviously you stranglehold it. So you walk up and then you feet, and they have to probably cast, boost, and maybe even like boost more times. That gives you 3 tokens. You put all of those on another jack, and then you hope that jack doesn't get strangleheld, and then you run up and jackhammer. And if they try to do it, they're going to need to boost, and boosting is more tokens.
So I've played this matchup before with Locke in Convergence, and when she wants to do it, she just gets assassinated because
really?
she
Even with the 16-inch bubble?
She needs to catch things in her feet, which is 14 inches. So. Yeah,
right. But I mean, in Convergence it's 16, but in Crucible it's 14. Yeah,
and
right.
You can just wait a turn just until the fit expires, but we'll come on to that.
Waiting a turn. That sounds interesting. All right. So, who won the roll?
I did, and I opted to go first because I've played a lot into Locke Convergence, and I hate her being in the middle of the table with Colossal. Just for the fit reason, because if she can take enough board space being first, she can actually use her fit more relevant. I mean, she can stand in a place and fit, and she might be safe from my army, and at the same point she will prevent me to enter zones without being in threat ranges of stuff. So yeah, that's horrible.
You were right. Yeah, you were definitely right to do that because Locke in Crucible Guards, her list is even faster than in Convergence. The Colossal is speed 6 base. Her other heavies are speed 5. They're all a little bit faster than Convergence, and you've still got +2 deployment range on top of that. Yeah. So I was really hoping to go first, and I was very sad when I didn't get the option.
And how was the terrain this time? Was the terrain similarly amusing, or was it more balanced?
It was awful. This time it was the opposite, I think. I like the terrain to protect me to like I've described in the Green King game. Like I like forests, I like buildings, and there was a forest in the middle of the table, but the angle of the forest was like it was very thin from my perspective, and nothing was around it. Like there were like some small hills in the zones or acid pool. That was maybe relevant. Yeah, it was the only relevant piece of the terrain on the table, probably.
Yeah, it was basically a narrow forest in the center and nothing else that mattered overly much.
Yeah.
And with the Vulcan, I guess you were rather happy to see that.
Yeah, I was pretty pleased. Also because I had 2 units of alchemists who can drop smoke clouds. So the central forest was all I needed for those 2 units to give me a lot of line of sight blocking in the early turns.
Right.
So overall, I was happy enough with the terrain.
Okay. So, turn 1, everything runs up, lovely. And turn 2 is Pat. So, what happens turn 2?
It's me. It's
him.
You were first. Sorry, I've already lost the plot. Right. Kruger runs up, then you just run up out of threat ranges, I'm guessing?
No, like we discussed before the cast with Patrick, I've got to say, I've played this game like I was playing Locke Convergence. I had no experience into Crucible Guard Locke. And after the game, I realized like this list is not as scary as I thought. So I've sent a Guardian to kill Suppressor. Is it the name of the Warjack? Yep. With the gun? Yeah. So I wanted to get rid of the Suppressor because it's easy to control Vulcan with Windstorm. And I didn't want him to trigger the Road to War with the gun. I wanted him to need to trigger it in melee or with Vulcan. It was a misplay because I've traded a Guardian for a Suppressor and I've did nothing else. And the range threat of the triggering Road to War wasn't that scary. I should kill Toro. And because Toro is like working piece, like something that can actually cripple my heavies. So that was my turn 2, and I fit. And I'm not sure why I did it. Like in this turn, when I analyzed the game, I could fit to push Shield Guard away from knockdown Toro with red line. Then I could enter Waldbird and kill the Toro, and then the trades would be pretty good. But I've panicked maybe a bit, and I wanted to keep the stuff far away from my army. So I went in with Kruger. I fit and I camped 4 or something stupid. So yeah, because
Okay.
yeah, playing with no experience and just keeping in mind that every turn he can run at your face and jackhammer you to death was like a bit stressful.
I think that's why you did it, because you were working really hard to keep my Vulcan under control, and the -2 speed on your feet was the only thing stopping the Vulcan attacking anything on the table.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that's like fear of the unknown is a reasonable, and often like the unknown does come and kill you. So it doesn't sound stupid to me. All right, and so how did your turn 2 look, Pat?
So I was pretty happy when Tomasz basically gave me a heavy in a good trade and feated on me, but because there was a heavy in front of me, all of my models still got to have useful activations.
Okay.
Whereas if that heavy had not been there, I'd be crawling around under feet and my models would do basically nothing that turn. So I was able to kill that heavy, score my flag, contest pretty much everything else, I think. That put me in what I considered to be an okay spot, where I was up on attrition, and I was alive on scenario. My biggest problem at this point, which I was very unhappy with, which was because of the feat, my poor Vulcan was only speed 4 and it couldn't move because it was sandwiched between my flag and my objective on recon, sitting in that little gap. And I put it there expecting to be able to move 6 inches, and when it was featured on, I was really put out. I was like, well, what am I going to do now? So it couldn't contest my own recon zone. All it could do was contest my flag, which was far from ideal. It was really curtailed. So I was pretty unhappy about that. I was pretty unhappy that I'd given away a few models for free. Like I had a few models in not very good positions. I gave away a Trancer unnecessarily. And I was losing a few pieces. And I was kind of kicking myself. These are all things that you do when you're less experienced with the list. Right. I didn't know what my opening moves were. I didn't know what pieces were valuable or what I needed to be doing with them. I was just figuring it out as I was going along. And I kept making small mistakes and then being annoyed at myself. But I don't think I made any huge mistakes. I was just reacting to Tomasz and hoping that he would make plays I could react to, which luckily for me is exactly what he was doing.
Okay. And do you think that carries across from your Grimkin play, like this reactive style?
It does. And that list was similar to Grimkin in that it was a bunch of heavies and a few support elements to keep them alive. But it was also because it's Kruger and because I was really unfamiliar with my lists, right? So I didn't have a playbook. I still don't with Locke. I don't have a playbook of good moves to make and how to set them up. So I was just trying to figure it out as I went along.
Right, just try and react and ask some questions and see what comes up. Right, yeah, okay.
Exactly.
So after that turn, where you've been feated on, you've crawled up, you've not got into your own zone, which sounds dangerous against Kruger, by the way.
And feet.
Yeah.
And you
Oh, yes,
feated?
and very importantly, I feated, because my models were now in a position where I was contesting a few relevant scenario elements, and one of the things that's interesting about the Vulcan is it threats 13 inches on a charge, which is pretty scary, and its run jackhammer threat is just off the charts, right? So basically,
when we say off the charts, it's
18 inches.
Oh God!
And the run jackhammer threat with the Toro is like 19 inches if you account for Road to War.
Right.
So basically, the way I was thinking is my threat range is so long that we're basically now engaging each other, right? Even though we're about 14 inches apart, I can attack any model in his army, and with all of Kruger's shenanigans, he can attack my models, so it's on. Right? So even though our armies are a long way away, I feated defensively, expecting that my army would be attacked by pretty much everything he had.
And where was Locke positioned?
She was in the center of the army, behind my objective, and a vanguard, base to base with the Colossal. So she was protected by line of sight, 2 rows of jacks. She had, I think, 1 camp and 2 shield guards. So she was pretty safe.
And were you tempted to go for the CK at all there? I mean, it's always on with Kruger, but were you tempted or did you not even look at it?
I didn't want to spend time on it. I mean, the assassination was probably there every turn, but, wasn't worth it.
I think it's worth mentioning, by the way, that assassination is by no means guaranteed, because in order to set it up, you have to give Locke 3 tokens. So she ends up being 1720 defense, which is not great for the World Weirds.
Yeah, that's true.
So I definitely agree it probably wasn't worth going for.
So it kind of worked. Yeah, it could have worked out. So what did you go for?
So I know Locks fit, but that was the biggest misplay that game, that turn, because I could stay outside of 13 from Vulcan, reposition my army, put just irrelevant stuff in the zone, and wait till the fit turn expires. I didn't know that a heavy in Patrick's army don't kill my heavy, maybe with Jackhammer's help. So the Vulcan was the biggest threat. But I look at the table and I can reasonably score 5 points this turn. I could face jump my Black Lad on a flag, then kill a Vulcan because he was the only contesting piece. 2 World Weirds with help of maybe Kruger kill objective, and 1 World Warden approach the Toro and maybe slam it away, maybe slam plus TK, maybe chain attack, whatever. There were many options to just push this Toro out of the way. So I needed to...
You're making it sound like you clear a Vulcan fairly trivially, though. Like, what are you getting onto the Vulcan? Are you getting, like, 1 heavy only, or are you getting 2?
So the problem there was I started my turn getting confirmation from Patrick that if I score all the elements, I win. Obviously, score 5 points, you win. So
yeah, good to know, though, yeah.
So then I started doing math if I can kill a Vulcan without Hunter's Mark, because the model that Hunter's Mark also needs to face jump. So I needed them to put it on a flag. And then I started doing the math, and the math is really hard under Locke's fit because she gets additional armor every time I use Fury, and I used a lot of Fury. And Hunter's Mark gives I couldn't do Hunter's Mark without giving the token. So I spent too much time just thinking about it, and this is the biggest misplay. So I wasn't consistent because I've went for the play, but the first activation was Black Lad doing Hunter's Mark, so I couldn't score those 5 points anymore because he was.
And did you realize that at the moment that you cast the Hunter's Mark, or
yeah,
did you realize that later?
Yeah, no, I knew it before, but I've even said it on the stream. But the thing is, like, I was a bit, I don't know, tilted, like, because I was losing time. I couldn't concentrate, so I was like, "Fuck it, let's just do something." Like,
fuck it, the birthplace of so many good plans. Yes,
I wanted to punch the Vulcan to death. I saw a play that if Vulcan dies, he's the only model that really like threatens a lot, and because of the giant footprint, and he was the only model that I cannot TK. So I figured out with low model count of Patrick's stuff, I maybe could control it even with single heavy and Kruger. I don't know. So I went for it, and the problem was that Megalith went in and rolled really high. So I was really lucky. I was convinced that my World Warden can kill it. So I could TK World Warden. So the World Warden would charge the Vulcan and had all the Fury to finish it off. But then I was like, Megalith rolled really high, and I have a lot of attacks to back up as a backup plan. So I opted to TK World Warden by himself, spending a Fury, and then charging. And my rolls were from super hot to super cold. And I left Vulcan on like 10 boxes, I don't know, something like this. And then I tried to finish it off with World Weirds and stuff. And I couldn't do it.
I guess it was like armor 22 at that point?
22, yeah. It was horrible.
So does it actually
it's got
get
2
reasonable
shield
defense at
guards
that
for
point?
12. I mean, it's not great.
Okay.
Bear in mind, it had been hit by Megalith, so it goes down to like 9 or something.
Oh, God. Yeah, Weight of Stone. Like, nothing ever survives Weight of Stone. I don't even know what Weight of Stone does. I know that Weight of Stone kills the model.
Yeah, I had that problem too on my turn. I was like, what does this token do? I'm not dead.
Yeah, this is the one that goes away when my thing dies. Like, just take it away. Yeah. All right, so you committed 2 heavies, a bunch of TKs, and some shots and stuff like that to killing the Vulcan. Didn't manage it, left it on 10. What was the scenario situation at that point?
So this is like the best case scenario for me because by committing all that power to try and kill the Vulcan and failing, Tomasz has kind of done the minimum amount for scenario. And I think of the possible 5 you could have scored, I think you got 2 points.
Yeah, 2. Flag and a zone that was contested by a single model.
Yeah. So rather than you being ahead massively, we're kind of even on scenario, and none of my models have died, and you've had to use so much fury against my feet that basically every warjack in my army has 3 tokens to give them armor and defense over the next 3 turns.
Yeah.
Okay, and so speeding up a little bit now, we can just sort of run through the rest of the game. So, because that's I assume that was the moment when the game went south. What happened? How did you react?
So the next couple of turns are kind of an interesting series of small plays where I do my best to play around all of Kruger's ways of stopping me contesting. And sometimes I do a good job and sometimes I do a really bad job. And I try to score where I can and just grind it out, right? Because on my retaliation turn, there's 2 heavies next to a Vulcan. They both explode. And then my super tough Tauros are basically able to just do whatever they want and be effectively immune to retaliation for several turns, because with Locke's feet, they go to defense 14, armor 23. And it becomes a game where I'm trying to stay relevant in scenario and kill models, while Tomasz is trying to end the game as quickly as possible before all his models are dead.
Okay.
And then basically the way it plays out is it becomes evident that that's not going to work. We're both low on clock, but Tomasz is lower. I've basically taken out everything that can threaten my battle group, and I'm not close to losing on scenario. And so that's when the assassination comes into effect.
Actually, I had the assassination a turn before it, but the angles were difficult and I needed to send Kruger, so I decided to just keep my world words maybe alive and try it next turn. And then the assassination came in like the turn before I decided not to go for it. And the turn I went for it, I had no choice, actually. I was like, I started with 4 minutes, really started to panic a bit. A lot of stuff had to happen. I did some bad decisions. Like I went in with Kruger and I decided to TK Patrick's models instead of my own models for no reason. Like, if you ask me, I don't know why. I just did that. I failed the TK, but the assassination worked out in the end, but 3 seconds after my clock ran out. So, yeah.
Well, those are always brutal. When we say, like, we're talking about a purgation CK, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I made a big mistake, and this is just an example of me not knowing my caster very well. I simply should not have upkept Road to War.
I'm just about to ask, like, why the hell didn't you just drop Road to War?
The reason I didn't, right, is because I didn't consider it. And it's the kind of thing where, once again, I don't have a playbook with my caster. And what I've got is I've got a sweet new caster, and one of her special rules is she gets to upkeep all her spells for free. So at the start of my turn, I'm like, great, all my spells are upkept for free. Okay, now what? And I don't stop to think, hold on a minute. This is a giant liability.
Right.
And if I had done that, then yeah, I would not have upkept it. And the assassination would have gone from quite good, probably, to quite bad, just by that single decision.
Yep.
Right.
Because obviously it removes 12 boosts from those attack rolls, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's huge. I mean, like, it reminds me, the reason I'm thinking about it is because Locke is one of the casters where, when I'm playing Animag, I have to take a line of play which goes against my standard playbook, and the very first thing I do is I run all of my tentacles out of command and RFP them.
Just so they can't trigger
Road to War. So it's like, it makes me sad, but it is the correct play, and it's just like, yeah... it feels bad, but I think you have to drop Road to War there, right? And you know, the fact you've obviously seen now that's.
It wasn't even a decision; it was just an oversight, because we're at the point of the game where Road to War isn't especially relevant.
Yeah,
you know, I'm winning on attrition. My models are in the backfield trying to beat stuff up. They don't need the positioning.
Right.
They don't need the threat range.
So
Road to War is a really good tool against TK. When I move your stuff, presenting back, and then you just Road to War it. To be in the front
to be able to charge,
to be able to
for
charge.
sure. But at that point in the game, it's just not. Yeah. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
All right. So what we said was, just to clarify, you went for an assassination, but your clock ran out during just at the end of it or whatever, and so the game went to Pat in the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then, massive congratulations to both of you. I think in such a big tournament, taking the finals of the Masters and the Invitationals, and both being in the finals of both of them, that's well, you're just showing off, frankly. As we are a little tight on time, I prepared a couple of questions based on some of the stuff that we talked about, and I just want to throw a couple of those at you, and then we'll wrap up. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Great.
All right, lovely. So the first one, I guess, is we mentioned about terrain and scenario, like that they were quite important factors in both of your games, I would say. And so, what would you like to change the most about the current scenario package? Maybe we'll start with you, Pat. What would you like to change?
So I really like the current scenario packet. I think it does a good job of forcing engagement and making scenario relevant. It forces you to play differently in different scenarios, and it gives different models different kind of weight of importance in different scenarios, whether or not they can score. I personally don't really want to change anything, but I think some of the scenarios are very fast, and it's only after some of the control casters' feats have been reined back a bit that they've really been fair. I think Kruger 2 is a great example of a caster whose control feat might also need to be reined back a bit to be fair on some of these fast scenarios.
Okay.
So basically, scenario packet's fine, nerf Kruger 2.
yes, that's the headline. I mean, would you agree with the Kruger 2 feat?
It just got better with Well of Ouroboros, so...
Great. So when we said, should it get nerfed, you said, well, it just got buffed.
Can you maybe elaborate? How did it get better?
It's 16 inches now with Well of Ouroboros.
Extra control range. Yeah, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
And when you say great, you mean, oh, God.
Yeah. That's what you want for your Windstorm caster in this control feat. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yep, that sounds wonderful. All right, next. So over to you, Tomasz. Do you like the current scenario package? What would you like to change, if anything at all?
The scenario package, I love it. They require different playstyle. Like you have very alive scenarios. You have scenarios that require your army to split apart and still be able to play. You have scenarios like Depit 2, which I hate, which is just pure attrition. So I love it. The only thing I would maybe change is the placement of objectives in Depit 2. I don't like that terrain sometimes affects which zone is actually yours. It might be that your zone is the one with your opponent objective. So I maybe don't like this aspect. Maybe just move the objective to the circular zone, like in Invasion, or move those rectangular zones closer to deployment by something like 2 inches would be enough, I would say.
That would make it like a mini spread the net, right? But
yeah, different, but more
but,
similar.
In that kind of way.
Spread the net. Yeah.
Okay. So that's scenario, and then we also discussed terrain. So how well are the terrain guidelines, like the ones found in the scenario packet, how well are they followed at the events that you attend? And is there any difference between sort of national, international tournaments? And would you like to see any changes to those guidelines or the way that they are enforced, I guess? And Tomasz, we can start with you. So terrain, go.
I love the terrain guidelines myself. I'm a circle player, so the denser the better. But if I was to change anything, I would love to see WTC style terrain on the table as a standard. Because
just for those who weren't there, what do you mean by WTC's terrain?
Like giant,
like big pieces. Yeah,
big pieces. Especially it's compared to miniature scaling. It makes more sense. Like forests are usually bigger than churches or chariots, right? So it makes more sense. It looks better and it affects game more. And there are some matchups that may be unplayable, but terrain can swing it. So I like that. that aspect.
And do you find that those guidelines are followed at the events that you attend? When you arrive at a table, are you likely to see that, or do you often find something else?
Yeah, I think that I probably 99% of the time see a line of sight blocking terrain on the table, which is suggested, not like necessary. And I usually, when I count pieces on the table, it's usually 8. So most of the time I'm quite happy about it, and I think that people follow those guidelines. And I think most of War Machine players are happy with the guidelines and with scenario package. And
okay. And Pat, do you have a similar feeling, or was there any of that you might come at from a different view?
No, I totally agree. I think more and bigger and denser terrain leads to more interesting and varied games, generally speaking. And what I've found is people have really... basically, this Steamroller packet, or the one before it, was the first time that we ever received official terrain guidelines, and my experience has been people have really embraced that. And as soon as they came out, people really started adopting the number of pieces guidelines, like it's always between 6 and 8. And people seem to really love putting something line of sight blocking in the middle of the table, and that's become the norm now. Wherever I go, it's almost always the case that there's a line of sight blocking piece of terrain either in the middle or near the middle, which I think is cool.
Yeah, quadrant doesn't see a lot of love, does it? I mean, I can't say I like it. It tends to just revolve around having 4 live bits of terrain and 4 kind of just useless ones.
Yep.
Which is a shame. You have to kind of tweak quadrant a bit to get it more relevant, in my opinion. If I was going to have a complaint about terrain, it would be quadrant. Like, improve it or drop it. That's what I'd do.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd say about quadrant is it serves as a good reminder to people that you don't have to have line of sight blocking terrain in the middle of every table. And actually, I think people have gone a little bit too far with being a bit overzealous in always having a large piece of line of sight blocking terrain in the center. I think it's good to have, but it's also nice not to have the same thing in every game, because if you come to expect that, then you start to plan it in your list composition. I think that's going a bit too far.
Fair point. I must admit that as a Legion player, it was always forest and building. Like, cloud is line of sight blocking. And then as soon as I started playing Primal Terrors and Ogres and all my stuff had eyes again, suddenly clouds popped up. Everyone's there playing Sloan and going, what? There's a big cloud. Like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, it's good. We're just going to shoot your ogres now. God damn it. So, yeah, that's a bit upsetting. Last couple of questions then. First, what percentage of your games would you say are won by each win condition? And do you think that that's a healthy balance of win condition for the game? And maybe a little bit about why. So maybe Tomasz, again, let's start with you. What percentage of your games are won by scenario and by clock and so on?
So it's hard for me because I play 2 control casters that play for scenario. So in Masters, okay, I won 5 out of 6 games on scenario and 1 by Def Clock. And okay, in Invitational, I won the first game with attrition. So I left on the opponent's caster. I won 1 game by Def Clock and 1 game lost by Def Clock with Pat, and 1 Kruger 2 mirror on scenario. So that was a perfect balance. So I don't know.
Except that none of those games were finished by assassination.
Yeah, none of those games went to assassination. And I think that in most of those games I could go for assassination. I even had some 80%ers, but if you can close down the game on any other win condition, you probably are better off doing that instead of rolling dice and hoping that it will work.
And do you think that's a healthy balance for the game? Do you think that
I think that the question is not really good. Sorry, Simon. I mean, okay, I don't know how to put it, but I mean, it depends on your lists and your playstyle. And both of my lists.
Then maybe I'm phrasing the question wrong. My point is that you've chosen, as reasonably well, arguably one of the better players in the world, to put both of your lists into control and scenario play, when one of the 3 win conditions of the game is assassination, and yet you are not tempted, even in a faction that has access to plenty of excellent assassination, you've chosen not to run an assassination list. I'm playing Legion, and I'm also not running an assassination list, even though we've got access to Lilith 3 and all sorts of craziness. And as far as I know, Pat, I believe you're also not really running any assassination stuff?
Yeah, well, Grimkin can't really run an assassination list. I don't think it's really available to them in their faction. And it's early days for me with Crucible Guard. I think they definitely can, but I'm not doing it yet. What I would say is I think when people are experienced, you don't get easy assassinations. Mm-hmm. And even if it can be difficult, I think Tomasz's lists kind of are assassination lists, and that they have really strong assassinations with really good threat ranges, coincidentally to also being good attrition and scenario lists. But competent players, even in situations where it's hard to avoid the assassination, can at least make it sometimes reasonably difficult. They can at least make it so that maybe he would rather just beat them on scenario rather than beat them on assassination, you know?
And is that good? Is that my question, and it's clearly not particularly well phrased, but do you think that the balance between the win conditions which exists is good and acceptable and you're happy with it?
I think it's fine. I think assassination is an ever-present threat you have to respect. And I think if it became more than that you could not avoid it, then it would be oppressive. I think the balance is really good right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And you would agree, Tomasz? Or?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I kind of feel that assassination tends to be the, oh God, I'm losing, let's try it.
Yeah.
Option, rather than, this is my win condition, this is what I want to go for. All right, cool. We're going to wrap it up there. Oh, wait, hang on a sec. We've got one more question, which I've got written down here. It came in from someone on Discord. It's directed at Tomasz, and it says, hold on, bring it up. It says, why did you go for the Colossal instead of just staying out of range and waiting till the feat to expire, scoring 2 points for free?
I hate you.
That is a really good and insightful question. Why did you do that?
Wait, I'm just going to try and find the username. It's Mucha. Never mind. Moving on. I had to do it. Right. Tomasz was kicking himself earlier about why the hell he didn't just back off. So I promised I wouldn't ask this question, but I have, so there we are. One quick thing before we go, because it's always good to promote events. So what are the next events that you guys are going to? Tomasz, what are you going to? What's the next event?
So next event for me is Polish Champions in 17th of
November?
Yeah. 17th of November is Polish Champions in Poznań, probably for you. And it's Iron Gauntlet qualifier for those of you that are interested in it.
Okay. And how about you, Pat? Have you got anything else coming up soon?
Yeah, so same weekend, 17th, 18th of November. We have in the UK, we have the UK and Ireland Super Series, which is a new event that started this year, where we have a series of qualifying tournaments all around the UK and Ireland, leading people to qualify for and be invited to the UKIS final, which is on that weekend. So I'll be attending along with, I think it's a 32-person event, might be 16, but it'll be, it's 32. It's 5 rounds over 2 days in Northwest Gaming Centre in Stockport, so that'll be really good. And it'll be all the strongest players from UK and Ireland battling it out.
Oh, cool. That's actually pretty close to my hometown. And so is there, people who haven't already qualified for that, can they just turn up and watch, or could they get some games in if they wanted to? So
I think it's mostly going to be qualifying players only. If you're really interested, check out the Facebook page. There might be an opportunity to play some casual games. There might be some more players there. But as this is the first year, I wouldn't necessarily expect it. Right.
It's sort of just getting itself rolling. Cool. I'm going to the Danish Nationals next weekend. That's the Arascon 2018. That's in, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. I apologize in advance. It's in Aarhus, I think. Aarhus. That one's coming up on September 9 to 11, I believe. I'm not sure if tickets are still available. I don't know. I'm not going to comment further in case they aren't. Then Hungarian Masters, as you mentioned, I'm probably going to skip that one because of the painting requirements. And then in December, 1st and 2nd of December, for the Europeans, there is a 3-man team tournament in Ljubljana. It's a really cool community, small community, who've put together, really strong players lists, teams. They've got a great venue. I've been there before. It's fantastic. So anyone who wants info on that, just contact me. I'll put you in touch, or can try and get you in touch with teams as well if you're short a team. And I think that's it for me for this year. After that, it's Conquest in Oslo, right? Are you going to that, Pat?
I am looking forward to it. Am I the defending champion for that one? Yes.
I don't know. You tell me.
Yes, I am. I won the Invitational last year, so I'll go back, try and defend my title.
Super. And are you doing that with Crucible or with Grimkin, or are you just not quite sure yet?
Not sure yet. I enjoyed playing both at the event. Crucible, obviously, are new and exciting and a little bit sexier than Grimkin, which I've been playing now for 18 months. The Clockatrice might change that. My testing with Crucible Guard might change that. But right now, I'm pretty high on that new faction, so probably Crucible Guard. We'll see how it works out.
Will they have all their releases by then?
Yes. By the end of November, everything should be out and kicking ass on the tabletop.
I'm a bit nervous about how excited you were about that yes. Like, that wasn't just like yes, it was like, yes!
I just want to play with trains. Trouble. Is that so wrong?
It just spells trouble for me. Like, anyone who's that excited about my opponent's models, that's not good news. Right, gents, it's been a real pleasure. We will sign off. So, any last words? Anything anyone's got to cover? No. Good. Silence. Magic. That's what I want to hear. It's been a pleasure. Catch you next episode.